Hello viewers, welcome to the series You the Oracle Expert, where you will learn Oracle technologies and products such as RAC, ASM, Exadata, OEM, GoldenGate, DataGuard, etc. and also UNIX with hands-on experiments using Oracle VirtualBox and start your journey towards becoming an expert Oracle DBA. In today's tutorial of this series, we are going to learn how to create an Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine and install Oracle Linux operating system. If you have a desire to build your career as an Oracle DBA with unique skills, or you are already an Oracle DBA, then it's really important to keep yourself up to date with the Oracle technologies and build your confidence with hands-on experiments with it. This confidence will not only help you achieve a brighter career and get better job opportunities, but also it will help you solve real-world problems. I am preparing this series of videos to help you achieve your goal, where we will cover the following topics: Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine concepts, Oracle Database 18c and 19c installation, DNS or Domain Name System Server configuration, Oracle Enterprise Manager or OEM 13c installation, OEM target discovery, promote and grouping, OEM incident rule sets and alert configuration, Oracle Real Application Cluster, physical standby, snapshot standby and active DataGuard, GoldenGate replication, both uni or bidirectional, configuring a virtual Exadata environment. Please note that each of these topics may take one or more episodes for the coverage. Also, I will go into only that much depth from where you can then take it forward. For the computer that will be hosting the virtual machines, you may have Windows, Linux, or Mac operating system installed. In this demonstration, I am using a custom build server with Windows 10 Professional installed. Before we start, please make sure that your host computer has at least 50 gigs of free space, at least 16 gigs of RAM or physical memory, a multi-core processor with at least 4 logical processors from where you can take 1 or 2 processors for the virtual machines. The virtualization option is enabled in the host. In this demonstration, I am using my personal server that I made with very high capacity configuration. This is a Windows 10 Professional server with two 8-core Xeon processors resulting in 16 total cores, and with hyper-threading enabled, it has a total of 32 logical processors, 64 gigs of physical memory, and at least 1 terabyte of free space available on a bunch of solid-state drives or SSDs for better performance. I will explain how I made this home server for all my gaming, Oracle UNIX practice, and media-related needs, spending less than $1,200 in a future video. You can find how to enable virtualization option in your host computer's BIOS based on the make and model of your motherboard of your computer. The virtualization option can be found under Advanced tab. If the virtualization option in your BIOS is not set, then there is a possibility that going forward you will encounter issues with your virtual machines. To verify if your host is ready to install VirtualBox and create virtual machines, right-click on the taskbar and go to the Task Manager. Then go to the Performance tab, click on the CPU, where you will be able to see how many logical processors are there. In my server, you'll be able to see there are 32 logical processors, and the virtualization option is also enabled. Then go to memory. It has around 46 gigs of memory in use and around 18 gigs of memory available, making it a total of around 64 gigs. So I have enough capacity in my host machine to accommodate multiple virtual machines. So let's start with the Oracle VirtualBox virtual machine installation. You can download it free from virtualbox.org. Once you are in the virtualbox.org's website, click on the Download VirtualBox 6.1, which is the latest version of VirtualBox software. Then based on your host operating system, select the option here. In this demonstration, I'm using the Windows hosts. Click on the Windows host, and it will take a few seconds to download the installation program. The installation is quite straightforward. Once you download the installation program, just click on the downloaded program and it will start the VirtualBox software installation wizard. Let it take all the default settings and click next. Click next again. It will temporarily disable the network interfaces. Click yes and click install. It will ask for confirmation to install the device software from Oracle Corporation. Click install and then click finish. So once your installation is done, you will get an interface like this. This is the Oracle VirtualBox software console where we will create our virtual machines. Right now there is no machine and you have a blank pane at the left. Your VirtualBox interface will look a little different than mine because I already have a bunch of virtual machines created and grouped under different titles here. So first we'll create one Oracle Linux virtual machine. To do that, we'll go to Machine, New. Let's put the name of the new virtual machine as VM Linux 1. And you have to specify the machine folder where the VirtualBox related files will be copied, and you can choose the location from here. So I have selected my D drive, which I have created for all my virtual machines. The type will be Linux and the version will be Oracle 64-bit. Click next. We'll allocate a memory of 4 GB, 4096 megabytes. Click next. We'll create a virtual hard disk now. Click create. Select the first option, that is the VDI VirtualBox disk image. Click next. There are two options here, how the storage will be allocated to the virtual disk: dynamically allocated and fixed size. If it is dynamically allocated, so it will be initially created with a minimal size and it will be extended as and when required going forward. But that will compromise the performance a little, so we will select our option as the fixed size. And the location of the virtual disk file will be, as specified earlier, d:\virtual machines. And I'm specifying one folder created for this particular virtual machine, that is the VM Linux 1, and all the files related to this VM Linux 1 virtual machine will be created under the folder VM Linux 1. Then we'll specify the size of the file as 50 GB. Create. It will take a couple of minutes to create the first disk file. So our first virtual machine is created with the name VM Linux 1, and it is created under the group Exadata, and I'll simply drag it to the template group, and it's under the template group now. Now we have to define certain properties of this virtual machine before we start installing the operating system. Right now it's a blank virtual machine without any operating systems installed. So when the virtual machine is selected, click on Settings. Go to Advanced, and we will enable the bidirectional clipboard and drag and drop from the host to the virtual machine and virtual machine to the host. And the snapshot folder, it's already taking the default location. It means whenever we are going to create any snapshots for this particular virtual machine, that snapshot will be saved in this folder. If you want, you can specify a different folder. Description, if you want any description of this virtual machine, you can write it here. Disk encryption, we will not enable disk encryption at this time. Click on the system options, and it is taking the base memory as we specified during the beginning steps as 4 GB. The boot order, it's taking as floppy, optical drive, and hard disk. Let it take that way. And all the other options, let it take the default ones under motherboards. Go to processor. We'll allocate 2 processors here for this virtual machine. Let the execution cap be 100% and enable PAE NX. Check this option here. Under acceleration, let it take the default options. Go to display. Video memory will be 16 MB. Monitor count will be 1. And the graphic controller will specify VBox VGA. Do not enable the 3D acceleration. And in the storage options, it has only one SATA interface with one hard disk that we created with the 50 GB size. Audio, let it take the default options. Then the network. This is a very important part here, and it can take up to 4 different network interfaces. And for this virtual machine, we will take only one. The first one will enable network adapter, and the type of the network adapter will be bridged adapter, and let it take the name by default as Microsoft Network Adapter Multiplexer Driver. Click on the advanced options. Adapter type, it will take automatically from the system. The promiscuous mode will be allow all. MAC address, let it take the default one. Cable connected should be on, and this is what the basic configuration of the network adapter. All other network adapters will be at disabled state because we need only one for this virtual machine. USB, let it take the default options. Shared folder, we'll define a shared folder later on, and we'll keep all the other things as it is. Now click OK. Just ignore this warning message below, invalid settings detected, because this is basically saying about the type of the display that we have selected here, but we'll stick to our this selection, VBox VGA. Now before we start, first of all, go to Preferences. Under Input, select a Virtual Machine tab, and in the host key combination, make sure that you select some keys which will help you to switch between the host machine and the virtual machine. In this demonstration, I am using the left window button in my keyboard, that is the host key, for me to be able to switch between the host computer and the virtual machine. So if you want to change it, simply click on that. First clear whatever is there. If you want to change it, then press the button that you want to be your host key. For example, when I cleaned it, now it is none. It means no keys have been assigned. Now I press the left window button, and the left window button has been selected as my host key. Click OK, and now we are going to download Oracle Linux from Oracle Corporation. We will go to Oracle's software download page, which is edelivery.oracle.com. I have given the link to this URL in the description of this video below. And to be able to download Oracle software, you must have an account created with Oracle. You sign in with your account, and then in the search box, we will put Oracle Linux. Click search. It will give you a list of downloadable Oracle Linux ISO images, and from here we'll select the Oracle Linux 7.9, and it will be added to your queue. Then click continue. And in the next page, select the x86 64-bit version of this Oracle Linux 7.9 and click continue. You have to accept the terms of uses. Click continue, and it will ask for a survey. You can simply submit your survey, or you can do it later on. In this page, we'll get a lot of options to install the Oracle Linux 7.9. We are mainly interested on the first one here that says Oracle Linux Release 7 Update 9 for x86 64-bit 4.5 gigs. We'll uncheck all the other boxes here and select only the first one. Click download, and it will download a small program called Download Manager. We'll click that, and it will simply ask for the download location. By default, it will be your system's download folder. Click next. It will take a couple of minutes to download 4.5 gigs of data, and your download is complete. Now, to install Oracle Linux on our virtual machine, we'll select the virtual machine, then go to Settings, then go to Storage, and if you see the disk controller, that's the first one, is the optical disk controller is empty, and here we will select the downloaded ISO image of Oracle 7.9. This is the file that we downloaded, the first one. Click open, and then click OK, and you can simply start the virtual machine. So this screen is simply asking you to map your optical device with the virtual machine. So this is actually the F drive in my system. So it is by default selected. I'll simply click start. The reason behind the error message just we have seen is because we mapped the optical drive after selecting the ISO image. So the ISO image was actually cleaned up from here. So all we need to do is to select it again. Now this is populated again, and then we will start installation of the Oracle Linux 7.9 in our virtual machine. In this screen, it will ask for confirmation about installation of Oracle Linux 7.9, and we will select the first option. You can navigate between the options using the up and down arrow buttons in your keyboard. So I selected the first option, install Oracle Linux 7.9, and press enter. Let's maximize the window. Please note that we maximized only the parent window, but the actual virtual machine window is still a very small one, and we'll fix this by installing VirtualBox guest editions after our installation is complete. Here we'll select English United States. It is selected by default. And one more thing I would like to mention here is when you click inside this window, you are actually clicking on the virtual machine. So you'll not be able to click outside of this window once you are inside. In my machine, the key that will help me to go out of this virtual machine or take control to the host machine is the Windows key in my keyboard. And if I click again inside of the virtual machine, then this mouse is kind of imprisoned between this window. Now we'll simply click continue. It will gather some information and take a couple of seconds. Where we see some kind of exclamation marks, it means it's still working on that. So installation source has been selected. Software selection, we have to select the software options here and the installation destination. We'll go to the installation destination and we'll select our 50 GB virtual hard disk that we created. Click again so that this check mark comes there. Then click done. Under software selection, we'll select everything except the DNS name server and email server. Let's go to the minimal installation tab, select everything. Infrastructure, except DNS and email, we'll select everything. File and print server, let's select everything. Basic web server, we don't need to install MariaDB. Let's select everything else. No, the PostgreSQL database client is not needed. Let's select the Python and web servlet engine. Under virtualization host, select everything. Under this, we have already selected everything and except DNS name server and email server. Click done. The next thing we need to do is to set a name for the host. Let's put the host name as VM Linux 1, all in small letters, and enable the Ethernet connection. And it has taken an IP address as 192.168.157. Click done. And let it complete the remaining tasks of checking the software dependencies and installation source. Now begin installation. And when the installation is in progress, we can set the root password here. Say the root password will be the same as the host name, just for simplicity, and you can change it later on. So the root password will be VM Linux 1, VM Linux 1. As we set a very weak password here, it's complaining about its complexity and just asking us to confirm that we accept this weak password. Click done and done again. And at this time, we will not create any additional users because we can anyway take care of that later on, and let the installation proceed. After the first reboot, it will ask for accepting the license agreement. Click on license information, scroll down to the end, check the I accept checkbox and click done. Then click on finish configuration. So English United States is selected by default. You can switch off the location services if you want. I'm keeping it on. Then the time zone, it is selected as New York, United States. You can select your time zone accordingly. Click next. Connect your online accounts. You don't have to do that now and you can skip it. And here you have to specify your username, full name and the username. Say I'm putting my name here and username will be the same. And click next. Password, click next. And click on the start using Oracle Linux server. And it will take a couple of seconds to give you the initial screen. We'll simply close this first window. And here is your new VirtualBox virtual machine with Linux 7.9 installed. In the next video of this series, we will learn how to install VirtualBox guest editions to extend its capabilities, resize a virtual disk, change the IP address of a virtual host and its host name, create a virtual machine snapshot, cloning an existing virtual machine, etc. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. And if you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more similar videos.